Good evening, social media, and welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. My name is Larry Abels, and I'm joined by my two cohorts, David Burnett. How you doing, David?
I'm doing well in Caitlin, Indiana.
Glad to hear that. And longtime neighborhood buddy, Charles Snowden. How you doing?
Hey, Larry, I'm doing great. It's Indiana week. We got a big one against Notre Dame, so I got my stuff on today.
Okay, and we'll see how Indiana goes, and we'll talk about them soon. So let's get started with the NFL.
Super.
All right. So first we'll start with, we had a bunch of good games last week, but it was three of them that jumped out at me, and I want to see what you guys' opinions are. First game I want to talk about is Philadelphia-Pittsburgh, the Battle of Pennsylvania. On paper, and there was a lot of hype about this being a good game, but Chuck, did it live up to the good game, or what did you think about that?
No, it didn't. Pittsburgh was disappointing in that game. You know, the scary news is this: Philly is rounding into shape. They've got everyone back. They're very healthy. Both wide receivers look good. Ertz finally heeded their call, started throwing that thing down the field. I don't know if they threw it down the field because Tomlin said, we are not letting Saquon run. So they put 8 in the box, whatever they say when they talk about stopping a run. But it didn't live up to the hype, in my opinion.
Yeah, when I was watching it, it kind of looked like Philly was like, we're better than you guys, and we're going to show you. David, do you think Philly is really that much better than Pittsburgh, or it was just a one-off on Sunday?
It's kind of a one-off, but some teams just have it over another team. Philadelphia right now, the way they're configured with Saquon Barkley, with Jalen Hurts, they're a better team playing Pittsburgh, but another set of teams playing wouldn't necessarily evidence that. But what the game did resolve is these alleged discord with Jalen Hurts and his wide receivers. Jalen put a ball in the air, Philly caught the ball, and Philly won. There it is. They're a better team than Pittsburgh, but that doesn't mean Pittsburgh's not a good team. It's just a bad matchup for Pittsburgh.
Hey, Kung Fu, thanks for joining us. Hey, Chuck, David mentioned something about the alleged discord between in Philadelphia. And I wanted to ask you this question, David. I'll come back to you on this too. Do you think it was really a discord initially when Brown said the passing game is broken? Was that him criticizing Hurt, or is he criticizing the play calling? What do you think?
I thought he was taking. Now, your point is a good point, and it might be the other way, but I thought he was taking a shot at Hurts. And I know that Hurts doesn't always get along with the head coach either. But I tell you what, they look good that day. I think it was like 401 total yards of offense versus Pittsburgh, 125, 130 yards of offense. I mean, the totals are just one-sided like crazy. I'm telling you, Philadelphia is a scary team right now. And guess what? Our Commanders faced them this weekend.
I'm not afraid of that. I don't have to play though.
I'm a little nervous.
David, do you think the discord was really there, or do you think it was overblown?
I think it's really there. In Philadelphia, there's always a problem, whether it's the fans throwing snowballs at Santa Claus or something. Philadelphia is a wild town. It's overrated, and that's why people get mad.
What's up, Gregory?
Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, Greg?
David, I'm going to advise you not to do any events in Philadelphia anytime soon.
Well, listen, Larry, you know they tell us if you go to Philly and you're a Commanders fan, you can't wear your jerseys. They've got that famous story where Clintus Portis' mom was fighting somebody in the stands because, like you say, Philly is just a unique place.
Quick story. I'm in Philadelphia for Buddy Ryan's last game, playoff game. after the body bag game. There were some guys that I went to college with, and I'm screaming and screaming, and everybody's telling me to sit down. So all of a sudden, the running back, Ernest, not Biner, one of the Washington's running back was upended at the end of the first half, falls down, fumbles the ball. Philly recovers, runs it back about 90-something yards. But they had replay for the first time there. So it's real quiet, and they're reviewing it. And I scream out, and I say, ladies and gentlemen, we got a reversal. And all of a sudden, as soon as I said that, they came over the loudspeaker and said that. I got about 3 free beers right after that.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
So, of course, me being from D.C., I turn around and say, who did that? The whole row stood up. Like, okay, thanks. Just wanted to know. But the fans there are really very good fans. I think this is a really great sports town in all every sport. And
well, they better like sports in Philly.
They had to break up a sideline situation in that game between Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle, and the head coach in that game, and they were dominating Pittsburgh. He walked. I guess he must have slapped somebody from Pittsburgh, got a 15-yard penalty against Philly, and I guess the coach didn't like that, and coach wanted to go over and talk to him, and the defensive line coach wouldn't let him come over, and they showed them they were going through something there. So there's always something on that team.
I would have fired the defensive coach immediately. He'd have been done.
That's how they roll there, man.
Well, that's what's wrong with Philly.
Truth be told, I was a season ticket holder at FedEx Field and RFK, and the fans there we have a jail in our stadium too, just like they do in Philadelphia, and for good reason. Alcohol and testosterone is not a good match.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Hey, the next game that jumped out at me was Detroit and Buffalo. David, did that live up to its billing?
Yes, because it's a preview of a potential Super Bowl matchup. Buffalo right now, because every week we kind of try to assess who's the best team in the NFL week to week. Right now, Buffalo's number one. And Detroit used to be number one, and they got so many injuries right now, particularly on the defensive side. But Detroit and Buffalo was a good matchup, and Detroit almost pulled it off. Almost.
Yeah, they also lost one of their running backs, Montgomery. He's going to be out most likely for the rest of the season. They have 2 good running backs, but now the offense is starting to be impacted. Chuck, what did you think about that game?
What a hell of a game. What a hell of a game. The contrast between the Pittsburgh game and the Philly game was, the total yardage. Both those, it was 48-42, and both those teams had over 500 yards of offense. Both the quarterback, Goff, and the quarterback for Buffalo showed out. And here's the thing, and I don't disagree with David earlier in the, if David is right. That looked like it was going to be a preview to the Super Bowl, perhaps. But because of the injuries, I think Philly's going to win. We'll talk about that later, but I think Philadelphia's going to come out of the NFC.
Could be.
Lauren, thanks for joining us. Yes, it was an amazing game. I have to agree with you 100% on that.
Hey, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Okay, and the final game I wanted to talk about a little bit, Green Bay and Seattle. Not quite as glamorous as these games, but it was a first-place team in one conference and a team that's in third place in their division, but probably has about the third tie for the third best record or fourth best record in the NFC. Green Bay and Seattle. What did you think of that game, Chuck?
I didn't. That's probably of the 3 games. That's the one I didn't focus on as much. Here's the thing, though. Their quarterback, and David, I have to give him his props. David told us that Geno is a player and Jordan Love is a player. And at the time he said that, I didn't agree. But Geno has done fine in Seattle. He went down in the third quarter. When he went down and they had to bring in Sam Howell, well, you knew what was going to happen after that. And it did. And Green Bay pulled that out. So I think that loss in the third quarter to Geno was a big blow. And as a result, Green Bay pulled it out, 30-14 or something. That's a tough place to win into, Seattle. They have that 12th man thing, and but without their quarterback, it's tough.
David, were you impressed with Green Bay in that game?
Green Bay, That's the team Detroit doesn't want to play. I don't think anybody wants to play Green Bay because Jordan Love, heck of a player. As I told you all last year.
Okay.
Well, you know, I'm going to say it. Green Bay's going to be a tough out. I'm not sure that they can win everything, but they're a dangerous team. They would be dangerous against Philadelphia, would be dangerous against Detroit. Detroit doesn't want to play them. They don't want to play them. No.
Yeah, that conference. The conference has Minnesota as well. And they're another team that I'm not sure Detroit wants. I mean, and their schedule is such that I think they do play Minnesota in one of the last 3 games. So it's unfortunate with all the injuries. They had 12 injuries on the defensive side of the ball. 12.
So here's the thing, and given it, this is going to lead me to my next point or my next question. Given the Lions' injuries, is it likely Philly will ultimately be the top seed or Minnesota in the NFC instead of Detroit, who's been favored all year? What do you think, David?
Very possible. Minnesota is underrated. You know, they have a hand-me-down quarterback who is reviving his career. Minnesota's dangerous, but for whatever reason, they're just one of those teams that fall short when it counts. That's historic. Now, could it change this year? Yeah, it could change. Could change. Minnesota's a dangerous team.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chuck?
I think there are too. Look, Minnesota I looked at this because I knew this probably would come up tonight. Minnesota has Seattle, Green Bay, and Detroit left. That's a pretty tough threesome to close out with. Detroit has Chicago, San Francisco, and Minnesota, and both of them have the same record at 12 and 2. No. Anyway, I think Minnesota's bottom line is I think Detroit, is going to hold on and still have the best record.
What about overall for the NFC? You think Philadelphia could catch them?
Well, if we have something to do with it, Washington, I think that would help big time. But it's going to be tough because Detroit just has so many injuries. It's going to be hard for them to beat Minnesota. They can beat Chicago and San Francisco, but it's going to be hard to beat Minnesota, in my opinion.
David,
I think Philly might end up with the best record. Is what I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. David, what about you? You think Philadelphia can come out of the NFC?
As long as the coach keeps his cool, the assistant coach doesn't knock him out, and that Jalen Hurts can get along with his wide receivers. If all of those things happen, Philadelphia will be in contention for the top seed in the NFC. But how many things did I mention? Like
two
four
or
different
three,
things.
right.
There's a lot of things that could go wrong in Philly and often do.
But David, all those things have been happening all year. They're still 12-2.
Well, last year they were 10-1, and the bottom fell out. Philadelphia is a quirky team. Emotions fly high there. I just don't know until they get to the playoffs, till they win the first game in the playoffs. I'm not certain because anything can happen.
Keep in mind, Barkley didn't play for them last year.
No, he didn't. Don't let him get hurt.
Oh yeah, I mean injuries could change anything. So here's the thing I want to ask you guys.
I think that's the point we're making here. I think Philly is finally healthy, and Detroit is not healthy, and so I just think that
could be the difference. That could be the difference.
So let me ask you guys: both teams healthy? How do you think that matchup looks? I think both of them are pretty deep teams.
Philly and Detroit.
Yeah. What do you think?
I like Philly.
You like Philly?
If Detroit is not injured, if they play injury free, they got something going. I would pick Detroit. But that's without injuries.
Right.
That was how the question was posed. So here's the thing. This is something I know you guys are going to love. I'm throwing it in. It wasn't on the agenda.
That's all right.
Let's say Minnesota continues to play like they do now. And let's say they make it to the NFC Championship game. their quarterback, Sam Darnold, is in the last year of his contract, and they drafted a rookie quarterback, JJ, what is it?
McCarthy from Michigan.
So, Chuck, I'll start with you because I know you love this stuff. Who's going to be their quarterback next year?
Well, that's a hell of a question for real. That's a legitimate question. I got to tell you something about that guy. I think the coach of Minnesota is Kevin O'Connell, maybe, or something like that. He is a hell of a coach, man. I know he doesn't get maybe the national recognition, but they are always got a pretty good record. And quite frankly, look how good Kirk Cousins looked when he was in Minnesota. He's now left Minnesota, not so much. And Sam Darnold, he looks great in Minnesota. I mean, he has not faltered at all. So they have a dilemma. They have a big-time dilemma, and I don't know the answer to that. Because the other thing is, would another team be willing to trade and make Sam Darnold their quarterback next year because J.J. McCarthy? Or could they keep both of them? I don't know the answer to that.
I have a theory for both quarterback success, but I want to get David's answer first. Do you think who will be their quarterback next year, David?
Sam Darnold. Because why not? Because you've got a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract and a veteran quarterback who's not going to get the top dollar. He'll get the mid-range dollar, which is let me get Chuck mad. The mid dollars is going to be $40 million a year.
Or more, David.
Or more.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's not the top dollar is 60 million now. So 40 million doesn't sound like, you're breaking the bank. So I would keep Sam Darnold and, JJ McCarthy, let him, understudy for another year because it's not costing you anything. It's still costing you much less than Patrick Mahomes makes individually with Kansas City. Why not? It doesn't hurt anything. Sam Darnold is playing the best football of his career. A lot of these guys, it takes them a few years. I mean, look at what happened in Seattle. Some guys take, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, if given a chance, to show what they can really do. And Sam Darnold is showing that he can actually play football.
Well, I think he and Kirk Cousins both benefited from the receiving core that they have in Minnesota.
Well, yeah, but you've got to still be able to get the ball to him.
I think that makes a big difference. I'm gonna tell you,
it makes a difference.
Just my theory. I'll give the play calling credit to. I mean, yeah, but gosh, those receivers they have up there are great. Speaking of quarterback,
wait a minute, Larry. Wait, hold on. So, what would you do? You said you have an idea of what you would do.
No, I said my theory was I had an idea why both of them were so successful. That's what I said.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
2 quarterbacks.
Okay.
It is because of the people they get to work with up there in Minnesota.
Well, Sam Darnold knew how to self-destruct wherever he's played. He did that in New York.
Yeah.
He did that in Carolina.
Yeah.
He's not doing it in Minnesota. He had people he could throw to in both places. They may not be all Americans and all pros, but they're still people who can professionally catch a football. He wasn't getting the ball to him.
Who did he have to throw to in New York?
I don't know.
Yeah.
They're professional. They're professional guys.
But you know the guys in Minnesota.
Hey, Larry,
I don't know him.
Larry, I only know one guy. I only know Jefferson. I don't know the other guy.
Oh, the other guy, Addison, is pretty good. But
Well, I think you're being too hard on Sam Darnold.
No, I'm just merely saying they got good receivers.
Give him his due. He's resurrected his career. He's getting ready to make big money for at least a year or two. And God bless Sam Darnold.
It's the coaching.
Yeah, Chuck, both receivers in Minnesota are better than both receivers that Sam Darnold had in New York. Now New York has another quarterback that's not doing well there, and he has one decent receiver.
The last couple of games, he's done okay.
You're talking about Aaron Rodgers, Mr. Space Cadet.
We'll give him 2 games out of 14. Okay,
That's right. So Addison must
Andrew,
be.
How you doing, Andrew?
Hey, Andrew. Okay, he was in the first round pick.
He can play. He can flat out play.
Okay, I think it's the coach. I just do.
Because,
for example, the Rams, we didn't know who Cooper Kupp and Akua, whoever that guy is. And because that guy knows how to coach out there on the West Coast, we hear their names. I just think the coaching is I just am a big believer.
No, I think that certainly has something to do with it. But
Right.
good players around you kind of helps too.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey Terry. Hey Andrew.
hey Terry, how you doing?
Terry.
Indiana week, Terry. Indiana week.
Hey, man.
So before we get off football, we got a couple of more things about the NFL.
Okay.
In the AFC, is Kansas City going to finish as a top seed? Chuck, I'll start with you.
Well, they're 13-1. What? 13-1. I know they're hurt. I know the quarterback is gimpy, or 12-1. I'm going to say yes, they will. Yes, they will.
Okay.
They'll end up the top seed.
What do you think, David?
No. Buffalo is going to be the top seed, and the championship AFC championship game will be played in 1 foot of snow in Buffalo.
David's right about one thing. They got
What's
3
that?
games left, Buffalo, right?
What do you mean I'm right about one thing?
Well,
What?
I'm sorry about this thing. Because they play the Jets, the Patriots and the Jets.
Yes, yeah. Well, they've had a tough schedule. I mean,
Well,
they've had a gauntlet this year.
Larry, they play in the AFC East. Come on now.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about outside of the AFC East. They played Kansas City. They played Detroit, Green Bay. I don't know whether it was Baltimore or
So
Pittsburgh.
they did. They played Baltimore, got blown out.
Yeah. They've had a real tough schedule this year.
Yeah.
So I mean, they deserve a break at the end.
Yeah. Well, they got one.
Okay. Last week, Josh Allen had another great game. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, and threw for 362 yards. Many commentators have said he has cemented his position as the MVP of the league. Somehow, I think some people must have forgotten, and I have no problem with him maybe being one of the leading candidates, but it seems like Lamar Jackson's 5 touchdown passes was somehow overlooked last week. So do you guys agree that Allen has cemented his league? Chuck, I'll start with you.
Well, I know my friend and colleague, Mr. David, will disagree with this, but I think right now, today, I give Josh, because of his performance against Detroit, where he had 3 touchdown passes, and I think he ran for 3. I'll give him just a hair's lead over Lamar. But I think when it's over, when this season's over, I think Lamar will be the league MVP.
No.
So to paraphrase, you think Allen is leading at the moment, but he has not cemented his lead.
That's the key word. He has not cemented the
David,
MVP.
do we still have a race? You know, you famously called out a race, maybe not by the margin that you thought in the Heisman, but you've been a pretty good prognosticator.
I'm pretty accurate. And let me be accurate again.
Okay.
Josh Allen will be the MVP. Let me repeat myself. Josh Allen will be the MVP. He's had more sensational national televised games. It matters. I think the fact that he's never won the MVP, he plays like he's indestructible. I think the voters, and this is the reason I'm picking him to win the MVP. I think there's MVP fatigue. Lamar Jackson has already won a couple of times. The voters are going to look for another alternative. Josh Allen is sitting there. And can we say, what happened to Saquon Barkley? He just got pushed aside. Running backs don't get it anymore. So let's move Saquon to the side. He'll finish 3rd. But Josh Allen is going to win MVP unless he is injured this week. Now, Lamar Jackson, he's got the boogeyman, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers have his number, have had his number for years. Now, if he can play dramatically well, spectacularly well, it puts him at least on almost equal footing with Josh Allen. I still think Josh Allen's going to win the MVP.
That game's this weekend.
So let me be clear. Was 5 touchdown passes spectacularly well?
No. I mean, Look,
Okay.
who threw 5 touchdown passes the week before, and we ain't even talking about him. Sam Darnold, isn't that who threw 5 touchdown passes?
He threw
Okay.
him.
Oh,
question is-
whoa.
So my question
But
is, 5
before-
touchdown
before-
passes is not spectacularly well. What will it take to be spectacularly well?
when Lamar, who is a spectacular player,
Yes.
he just hasn't played as spectacularly as Josh Allen. And he's already won the MVP twice. There's a bias against it. How many times would Wilt Chamberlain have won the MVP? How many times would Michael Jordan have won the MVP? How many times would LeBron James won the
They
MVP?
should have all won it every year.
Well, let me finish. They would have won it any year. But sometimes voters are tired.
Okay,
they're
but I want to
looking
go
for a
back to
way.
your statement. Your statement was, unless Lamar Jackson plays spectacularly well,
Which he's done
he'll
all
fall
year.
further behind Allen.
Particularly against Pittsburgh.
So my question is throwing 5 touchdowns, what would you consider that spectacularly well?
It's not better than Josh Allen.
I didn't say better. I didn't say better.
No, well, look, we're splitting hairs here. They're the
Okay.
2 top candidates.
They are.
But the number 1 candidate is Josh Allen,
Okay.
primarily because he has not won.
Right.
And he has looked more spectacular than Lamar Jackson this season.
Plus, Kung Fu said, and this is a good point. Kung Fu said, "Hey, they played the Giants, and Buffalo played the Lions in Detroit."
There you have it. Thank you, Kung Fu.
Well, with the Lions, with how many people out on their defense?
Injured. They were injured.
Yeah. How many people
Played their second team.
Yeah, played the Lions JV defense.
I think you guys are biased for Lamar Jackson, and you're not being as objective as you
No,
should
honestly,
be.
David, honestly.
No, I have no bias for him. I have no bias for him.
He's number 1 in every.
Josh Allen should be the leader right now. No doubt about it.
If you look at his stat, for example, your guy, Josh, he has 20, right. And we said that. But Josh Allen has 25 touchdowns. Lamar has 36 with only 3 interceptions.
Well,
All
if
three
we're
of those
looking at
interceptions-
statistics, then Joe Burrow should be right there. But he's on a team that may not make the playoffs at all. So it matters.
Okay.
And Buffalo has a better record. They've had more spectacular games, and Josh Allen has literally played like Superman.
All right,
And that
So,
matters.
For all our viewers, I knew this was going to happen, so I had to ask this question.
Thank you.
It's just, we drew weapons in the production meeting over the same question, so we knew it was coming.
And we all know Sam Darnold's the best quarterback, so just stop it. So here's the thing. As we close out the NFL, Chuck, give me your 5 top teams.
Philly, Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, and Detroit.
Woo, Baltimore and Detroit. Okay, David, what do you think?
All right, in the proper order: Buffalo number 1, Philly number 2, Minnesota number 3, Detroit number 4, Kansas City number 5. That's my list. In order.
I have to agree. I have to agree with the Caitlin Clark guy with the Caitlin Clark jersey on. I think
Thank
you
you.
got it right.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, by the way, you guys were the same folk when last year we were about at this same point, and Lamar took his act. First of all, he crushed Miami, which was Larry's team, but he'll deny it. And then they went out to San Francisco.
They've
and
never been my team.
Hold on, you'll get your chance. Then he went out to San Francisco and destroyed the 49ers and closed out the season of the last 3 games. So we'll see what happens in these last 3 games.
Well, Josh Allen wasn't playing like Superman last year, and Lamar Jackson had only won 1 previous MVP. Look,
Okay, all right, we'll see.
that's all I'm saying. And again, I'm not hating on Lamar.
And
Lamar,
I'm not hating on Josh. And I'm not hating on Josh either, to be honest.
I don't think Lamar should have won it last year. I didn't think he played well the whole year. This year, he's playing well the whole year.
He's played well. Unfortunately, Josh Allen's played better.
I have no favorite teams whatsoever. If I had a favorite team, it would be any local team. Here's the deal. What I say is if a team's playing well, I'll say they're playing well. But they're not playing well. Miami played well sometime last year.
I told you, no, they didn't. They played well against bum teams like they do now.
But
They
wasn't
cannot
their record
they
something
cannot
like
beat good
9-1? When their record like 9-1 and
They
9-2.
hadn't beat anybody of any.
I know, but
any
if you're 9-2, just like I'm saying, Minnesota's played when they're playing well, they play well. I just call it as I see it. They had a tough schedule down the stretch, and they couldn't play well down the stretch.
They were
no favoritism here.
They're so
If I had favoritism, trust me, it would be the local teams. And when you hear me talk, you never hear me talk
I
about
know that. I know you like the local team, but Larry, you have a hard time hiding your and then you'll try to run.
No, you make an assumption. You make an assumption. When I say people are playing well, I'm speaking for the moment. That's all I'm speaking is for the moment. In the moment. When it changes, they're not playing well. They're not playing. I have appreciation for any pro teams, any players out there playing. I have a certain appreciation and respect for all of them. But you never really hear me say anybody's garbage. You never hear me say that about anybody. I have no love for anybody particularly. I call it as I see it, how they're playing at a given time. Right now, I would have Minnesota as one of my top teams. I might like Baltimore better because if they're close to Washington, but I agree with David because Minnesota's fine.
Okay. I'm not okay. Sometimes you don't recognize.
No, you quote things that you might perceive, and it's fine if you perceive that, but I'm setting the record straight, speaking for myself, and I wouldn't back away from how I felt about it. So let's move on to the college football playoffs. Now,
David stayed out of that argument, didn't he?
I
you
let
comment
y'all
if
just
you
go.
want.
No, it's done.
Yeah,
I've made my case. From Caitlin, Indiana, I've made my case.
Speaking of college football, Indiana and Notre Dame. Who wins that game? Chuck, who wins that game? Indiana.
Yes, the upset that everybody will be talking about on Saturday morning.
How much are they going to win by?
Friday night in Notre Dame.
How much are they going to win by?
I hope if it's just 1 point, I don't even care because they're like a
close
point
game
right now.
Close game.
I mean, sure.
No, I mean Indiana's been blowing people out. That's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, they're playing on the road in South Bend, and I'm sure the weather's going to be cold. And Notre Dame is formidable. They've got a lot of 4- and 5-star players on their team, but Indiana will win the game.
David, who wins that game?
I want Indiana to win. Notre Dame's going to be hard to beat. Indiana wins if they believe they can win. Indiana has never been there. I mean, keep in mind, now I may have this wrong. I think in Michigan and Notre Dame are like neck and neck with the most college football victories. Indiana is alone. I'm sorry, alone with the least amount of top victories in major college football. So the worst against the best. Indiana can only win if they believe they can win. Notre Dame wins the game. I hate to say that, but they should win the game.
There you go. Here come the Hoosier folks. Here they come. Here they come.
But don't you think, I mean, all history aside, and one thing you always hear me say, this is this year's team.
Yeah.
Does the history really matter? I mean, Indiana's team is playing very
I think
well.
it does. I think it matters on a subliminal level. You know, I'm getting mysterious.
I can understand that. Do you think it matters to the players on a subliminal level? I can see
Yes.
that fans.
I mean, it's kind of like Notre Dame. Don't they always tap the little sign before they go out?
Yeah, on the way out.
That's historical. That's part of the history and legacy of Notre Dame football, all the way to Newt Rockne and the Four Horsemen.
Win one for the Gipper.
And Frank Leahy and Ara Parseghian. You know, Notre Dame is the number one brand in college football. Has been for 100 years. Indiana.
So let me ask both of you this question then. But with respect to their teams this year, I've heard a lot of stuff about the weakness of Indiana's schedule. Has Notre Dame really beaten any top teams this year, Chuck?
No, they beat USC at USC. That was it, and they barely beat them. They lost to Northern Illinois early in the year in South Bend. They haven't really they beat Army or Navy, or Army and Navy. I can't remember. But no, their schedule hasn't been that overwhelming at all.
So, David, is there anything about Notre Dame beyond the historical stuff that would make you think this year's team?
I think they have more 4-star and 5-star players. They have more players who will actually play in the pros. I think the fact that they're playing in Notre Dame, Indiana, because it's not South Bend, it's
Right.
Notre Dame, Indiana.
Right.
You know, the people of South Bend don't like that. There's a factor. You know, and if it was a neutral field, I'd give Indiana a little bit more play, but I'm cheering for Indiana. My sister went there. My mom went there. I've been on that. One of the most beautiful campuses in the United States is in Bloomington, Indiana. I enjoy every time I went, I had a good time. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly what kind of good time, but I had a good time.
That's the important thing, that we're having fun.
Well, touchdown Jesus will be looking over that stadium, like David mentioned, in terms of how that tradition, all the ghosts will be out. And Indiana's got it. That is something to overcome too, Larry. I mean, there's a lot of legacy. And, their parents are telling them about it. They know about it. And yet I still think Indiana will figure out a way. Greg Fenner should have listened to old.
Yeah,
they played Northern.
Yeah, we're all those people that are ghosts and all of that. Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. I got to defend Northern Illinois. They're part of my conference, the Mid-America Conference, and Ball State, where I went to school and half-ass played. The Mid-America.
I don't think he's knocking them.
Well,
he's showing that Notre Dame is vulnerable.
Well, Northern Illinois is the beast of the Mid-America Conference and has been for many years. They don't win every year, but they are always significantly better than most of the Mid-America Conference teams. So if Notre Dame took them lightly, got their ass kicked, and it woke them up for the rest of the season.
Well, David, seriously, all jokes aside, Greg is very familiar with Northern Illinois because Greg's best friend, Michael Pinckney, he played for Northern Illinois, and we hear about them all the time. They have had a great legacy. They've had some big wins over time, even in the NCAA. Yeah, exactly. So Greg is very familiar with Northern Illinois because his best buddy, Mike Pinckney, played there, and we definitely know about them.
Okay.
They shouldn't have beat Notre Dame and Notre Dame.
Well, they shouldn't have, but that was probably the best thing that happened to Notre Dame this year.
They haven't lost since.
Nope.
Okay, next game, SMU at Penn State. David, does SMU have a chance?
Yes, they do have a chance, but it's SMU. This will be the one game that pitiful Penn State, will win. But I think SMU, if they catch Penn State playing conservative, James Franklin, stupid football, they can be beaten. I'll leave it at that. But I think on paper, Penn State should win that game.
Now, Penn State conservative football. Now, Penn State, they've lost. Who did they lose to? They lost to Ohio State.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Nope. Oh, they lost to Oregon in the championship.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. What do you think there, Chuck?
I think because it's at Penn State, and I'm not a big James Franklin fan in a big game either. But SMU for the first time, to go up to Happy Valley in the cold. It's going to be cold as hell, and I think Penn State will pull it out. They're a physical bunch, and I think they'll pull it out. Boring.
So if I recall, SMU was leading the ACC a lot of this year, right?
They did.
Yeah.
They did. And they had a hell of a comeback against Clemson in the second half of their ACC championship.
Yeah, that's right, in their championship game. Yeah.
Right.
Next game, Clemson at Texas. David, what do you think of that game?
Texas wins that game only because if this was the real Clemson that we saw 4 and 5 years ago, it'd be a walk. Clemson would win easy. Texas, historically, when I say historically, well, I'm not talking about like 2006 when they won the national championship. Texas lately.
Yeah, I was wondering about them.
I still say Texas because this Clemson team is not the same. So I give Texas the win because they're playing at home.
Chuck, how do you feel about this?
I agree with David. I give Texas a nod. One of the things Clemson, and David referenced this, before these rule changes and the portal and all that stuff, Clemson was very formidable, but they don't believe in the portal. So they don't take kids from the portal. They only take the high school guys and train them up all over time. So they're a little bit at a disadvantage. This is on the road at Texas, and I give Texas the nod in this game.
Okay, now the last game is the 8-9 matchup, and I think it'll be interesting. And Chuck, I'll start with you. Tennessee at Ohio State.
Ooh.
Who do you think wins that game?
That's a good one. I'll pick Tennessee to upset the Buckeyes. I hope my Ohio State friends aren't listening. I'm picking Tennessee to upset the Buckeyes in Tennessee, in Columbus. Look, man, Ryan Day, he's another guy that doesn't win a lot of big games. So I picked Tennessee to upset them, although they don't have a lot of history either, Tennessee. But I picked them to upset Ohio State.
David, who do you like in that game?
The Ohio State University. This is one game they're going to win easy because it's Tennessee. It's kind of like back in the day when Bob Knight looked over at what's my man from LSU?
Dale Brown.
Dale Brown
At LSU.
Ohio State's going to look over at Tennessee and they're like, y'all in that orange. You're nothing. It's going to be a blowout, a horseshoe blowout. I might be wrong because I'm wrong from time to time. Not often, but from time to time.
All right, Kung Fu. We'll see what happens. I don't know. They should be favored, but we'll see.
Chuck, do you think Ohio State has played up to the level? I know you picked Tennessee, so why do you think Tennessee is going to beat Ohio State? Is it because Ohio State hasn't impressed you this year?
No, they haven't. Even though they beat Indiana, they caught us when we played our worst game of the year. And then they come back to a terrible Michigan team, as far as I'm concerned, compared to other Michigan teams in the past. And in the only game that really matters in Columbus, it's the only game that matters. Trust me. They lay an egg. And they come on in Columbus against that Michigan team? Nah, nope. I don't think so. I think he's a dead man walking. In fact, I'll drop this bit of news. I think Mike, or what's his name, Mike Vrabel. What's the guy that used to coach Tennessee?
Yeah,
Mike Vrabel.
He'll be the next coach.
David,
Ohio State University, and it'll happen right after Tennessee upset them.
And this is the only Big Ten ACC matchup in the first round. David, why do you think Ohio State will win that game against one of the vaulted SEC teams?
Tennessee is an imposter. They're a fraud. They're going to find a way to lose, and they're going to lose. And they're playing in the horseshoe. And Ohio State, Ryan Day, everybody's got a lot on the line. First time they've ever played a playoff game at the horseshoe. Ohio State's winning easy. Easy.
Okay. You got it on tape.
Interesting.
Well, you can play the tape back. And if I'm wrong, which I probably won't be, you probably won't play it.
You're pretty good at that.
Okay.
So, Chuck, I think you picked Indiana, Penn State, Texas, and Tennessee.
Correct.
Which one of those teams is likely to go the furthest in this tournament?
You know what? This is crazy. I mean, of course, I want Indiana, but I think Penn State, for probably the opposite reason that David believes, and that is they play Boise next. And I know Boise is a major program, and they can compete, and they're pretty good. But Penn State, all they have to do is to beat SMU and then beat Boise. I think Penn State, Larry.
Okay, David, I think you picked.
I'm picking Boise all the way.
I know.
But out of the teams that win the first week that you chose, which one do you think will go the furthest?
Boise.
No.
The first week. Who goes further? God, that's a hard one. I would say Texas.
Yeah, because Texas is Arizona State next, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Texas.
Good one.
Who? I think it'll be interesting. Yeah, I always thought Texas had the easiest route, at least to the
Right.
On
Final
paper.
Four.
Although we found out about that little running back from Arizona State, he showed out in that championship.
Scottaboo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, finally, thoughts on the Heisman Trophy voting. David, what's your take from it?
The right man won like I predicted. Now, did he win by the margin? I thought no. But Ashton Jeanty is a great running back. Any other year, and let me be very clear, any other year, Ashton Jeanty wins the Heisman Trophy. Colleges still recognize a good running back from time to time, even though it's become kind of a quarterback award. Ashton Jeanty had a spectacular year, but you don't beat a guy, even if the vote is close. You don't beat a guy who plays great on offense, great on defense, full time. No other player in college football played as much as Travis Hunter. Nobody. And he played well both sides of the ball. He had to win the Heisman Trophy. If there are any negative votes against him, I think they were anti-Deion Sanders votes.
Chuck, do you agree with that? Or
I
do you
do.
think
I think they got it right, Larry. I do. It was close, like we predicted. And both have had a hell of a year. And I got to tell you something seriously. I was really moved by Travis's speech afterwards, how he acknowledged the folks who've been traveling with him along this path. And I really am starting to – I like the kid anyway, but I really, really like the kid, and I hope he does well going forward. You know?
Let me just say this about Travis Hunter. He picked Jackson State to go play for Deion Sanders. Specifically, he was the number one, I believe he was the number one ranked defensive back in the country.
You're right.
And chose to go to an HBCU first and play and learn from Deion Sanders. Yeah. And now he wins the Heisman Trophy at Colorado.
Pretty impressive.
That's extremely impressive.
And stayed healthy playing all those snaps that you mentioned. You know,
Yep.
it's pretty impressive. I like the kid.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to. I would have been comfortable with either one of them winning, and but I thought Hunter would probably get it based on, particularly on the notoriety that he received in his programs,
the marketing
profile.
Right. The marketing.
NBA, Emirates Cup last night. I think it lacked a little excitement there. Chuck, what do you think of the outcome of that game?
But I'll tell you what it did. I watched it. I'll tell you what it did for me, though, seriously. And David, this is another David. I'll give David his kudos again. When we started this show several years ago, David always liked Giannis. Always. Was one of his favorite players, if not his favorite player back then. I forgot how talented that daggone Giannis is. He is a talented dude. He is a 7-footer, gets the rebound, brings that thing up the floor, and starts the offense. I mean, he can go down in the post. You can dump it into him. Now he's got the Dirk Nowitzki one-leg jump shot. He is so talented, and and his body is built. That's the one thing that came out of that game for me is how great Giannis is.
What did you think of that game, David?
The outcome was kind of a disaster, if you will. 81 points scored by Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is arguably the best team or second best team in the NBA this year. But to say the tournament, it's a good idea. I'm glad they have it. It brings attention to the NBA at a time when they wouldn't get any attention at all. And so bravo to the NBA for trying to do something different. And I'm glad they have the tournament. I'm glad they do it in Las Vegas for the final 2 games.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. The previous game, Oklahoma City played Houston, and Oklahoma City didn't score well that game either. Neither team shot well. I think both teams had under 90 points or under 100 points. You know, they both were like 40 at halftime. And I expected Oklahoma City to, I thought that was a one-off, but now I see 2 games And those were the previous games were more playoff intensity games. This game wasn't like that because Oklahoma City couldn't score. The one thing I'll tell you guys about Giannis, and I think we had an earlier discussion when I was saying he was the best player in the league. He's playing so well offensively, but defensively, every game he's getting 4 or 5 blocks. He's challenged. Nobody can get to the hole on him. And this meant a lot to him this year. He said last year they went home too early from Las Vegas. He really took that seriously. If these two teams meet again in the finals in a 7-game series, do you think the outcome will be any different, Chuck? You think this is a one-off game and OKC will be able to adjust or what?
First of all, I hope it's such a. Please don't let Doc get to the finals and win it all. Please don't let that happen. But I don't know, Larry, because I don't think the Bucks are going to get out the East. I really don't think that's going to happen. So my answer to that is if the two of them met in the finals with this, I still think they don't have an answer for Giannis. Now maybe this guy's Chet Holmgren would be back by then. I don't know, but they didn't have an answer for Giannis, Larry. They did not have an answer.
David, what about if the two teams met?
I hope it happens. Best thing that happened to the NBA is being forced to publicize 2 small market teams, Milwaukee and Oklahoma City. They have 2 of the 7 best players collectively in basketball, the world of basketball. So Oklahoma City should be rewarded. Milwaukee should be rewarded. So I hope it happens.
Who would win?
I think experience wins and Milwaukee would win because right now they're 100% healthy.
Greg, I think you're absolutely right. If you watch Oklahoma City, when they're on, they crush everybody. The last 2 games, they've been ice, as he's talking about. It looks like it's amazing the last 2 games I've seen them. But I think their record is like 20-5, so most of the time they're on.
But one thing, keep in mind, when Chet Holmgren comes back, Chet Holmgren has already proven, as skinny as he is, that he's a player, a tremendous player. They need him.
They have a great team. David, they got about 10 guys on their team. All of them can play both ends of the floor. The one guy that they had, Giddey, he was the only guy that was kind of soft, and they traded. They got Caruso and somebody else who could play both ends that are defensive.
Caruso can play defense, man.
Right. I mean, that was a big difference. They have a great defensive team. I would like to see them play Boston, too. I think that'd be interesting, too, because Boston's kind of the same way.
Well, Boston's got something to prove. Tatum and Brown have things to prove still. So that'd be a good matchup. But I'm tired of the big cities always winning. Tired of it. I want the NBA to embrace small markets.
You know what's interesting, and I'll just say it. Look, man, I don't watch it every day. I just watched it yesterday, and I hear a lot about OKC. Everybody tells me about how great they are. They look like some trash yesterday, for real. And I remember them in the playoffs last year too. Everybody thought they were going to come out the West, and they didn't look good. I think what happens with them, they play really hard and together like a college team during the regular season. But when they got to play a good team who's also going to play hard and from a strategy perspective, I don't think they have the guys. I don't think so.
They got the guys. They have SGA.
They have a lot of good players. I think what's happening, Chuck, and David kind of touched on it, they were just kind of young, and now they're kind of like a little bit older and another year playing together. Watch them this year. Their inexperience has hurt them against – and experience matters in the playoffs, no doubt about it. I think Boston was suffering through that, and they kind of got to be 26, 27. Oklahoma City's a year or 2 behind Boston in that manner. But they have a good team. But the last 2 games have been – they look the same.
Boston had players. Boston has players. Who's the second best player on Oklahoma City?
Oh, Jay Williams, their other guard.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
You think he scares people?
If you watch him play, you'll see that. And when Hogan comes back, he'll probably be the 3rd best player.
Oklahoma City's a damn good team, and I think you're being really very critical of Oklahoma City.
I don't watch him every day, David. I just saw him yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday is not a good example of them. They have a really good team.
They're good. They're really good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander top 7 player in the world of basketball.
He got out to a slow start yesterday too. I don't think he's got going until the second half yesterday.
They shot 5 for 32 from 3-point. That's the other thing about the NBA. There was 72 3-pointers shot in that game. By the way, Dame Lillard, he looks better than I remembered him. He's starting to round out.
He better not get injured.
He looks better now. But anyway, they just shoot threes, everybody. And it just, except for Giannis does whatever the hell he wants to do.
He's a great player.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up now and see if you guys have any closing comments. Mr. Burnett, we'll start with you.
Okay. Let me just say this, and I'll try to be quick. The unregulated NIL, the unregulated transfer portal, the unregulated collectives, bullshit. Just bullshit.
Am I going to have to take you off the show now?
No.
Okay. Call upstairs.
They need to regulate all 3, because until they do, like for instance, the kid from Utah who's allegedly making $10 million a year from NIL. That's a lie. And there's nothing to document it. Show us some paperwork. Show us something. It's a lie. So until this is regulated, I don't want to hear about NIL, transfer portal, collectives. It's all garbage. NCAA needs to get in there and regulate this stuff and make it palatable to the general public. That's my closing comment.
Thank you.
And my closing comment is a follow-up to his closing comment, which we say we don't do. It's a separate one, and I agree with David. There has to be some controls put in. However, right now, the biggest problem is there's no leader. There's no, like in the National Football League, there's the president of the Players Association and the head of the NFL the guy who speaks for the owners, and then they hash these things out. There is no such thing. Every league does its own little thing, and it's complicated on so much levels. Here's what I would say, and this is for me. My team, Indiana, basketball and football, we've benefited from all of these things that are out there, and we've taken advantage of it. We don't have any complaints. We don't have any problems. We got our money. We know how to pick players. We love it. It's worked to our advantage, and I can only speak about us.
I don't have a closing comment. Thank you, gentlemen. So, thanks everyone for joining in. And,
one thing, Larry, we got to mention next week and the following week, we're going to do the show on Monday because Christmas and New Year fall on Wednesday, our normal broadcast day. We're going to do the show next Monday and then the following Monday. Just wanted to make sure you all know that.
Good catch.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And I meant to mention that. Yeah, special time. And, check your Facebook pages and YouTube for those announcements again. So I'm going to lead you guys out with our normal intros music because I didn't play it on the way in. So you'll get to enjoy it on the way out.